Welcome to today's class. So in today's mathematics class, I'll help you with 2022 Mathematics GCE Paper 2. So we are going to continue. I posted the video where I started by solving question 1. So this is a continuation for question 2. So don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out the next videos, because we know that this is a period for exams. So don't forget to subscribe. So the question is saying simplify 4p divided by 3q divided by p squared q divided by 6 times pq divided by 2. So that is our first question, which we are going to simplify. So how can you simplify a question which is looking like this? So there are some things which you need to understand before you start simplifying. What are those things? So the first thing is you have to change this division sign into what? Multiplication. We know that whenever we are dividing fraction, the first thing we do is change the sign to multiplication. So how can we change this sign into multiplication? So that is the simple thing to do. So you just flip the next fraction. So meaning this division sign is next to which one? This one. So meaning we are going to flip this one so that it looks like this. Yeah. So once you do like this, meaning you have successfully changed the division sign into a multiplication sign. Simple as that. So step 1 is done. We have changed the sign. So now moving on to our step 2. Now simplifying. So how can we simplify? So first we start with numbers, because numbers are easy to do what? To simplify. So we are going to say 2 into 2 is 1. 2 into 6 is what? 3. Then again we are going to say 3 into 3 is what? 1. 3 into 3 is what? 1. So meaning here at the middle we only remain with what? 1. Here we also have what? 1. Then after we have simplified the numbers, next we are going to now what? The letters. So which letters can be simplified? So we can see that we have Q here and we also have Q here. So Q and Q can cancel. Then remember we also have what? P and P. So how can we divide P with P squared? So remember, whenever you have P squared, this is same as P times P. So meaning if we have P squared here, we have how many P? 2 P's. So then if these 2 P's are divided by 1 P, we are going to cancel which one? This one and this one. So meaning here down we are going to remain with what? 1 P. So if we divide this P and this P, here we are remaining with what? P. So now let's write what we have remained with. So here we cancelled what? P. So we remained with 4. Here we remained with 1. So 1 into 4 is just 4. Then you say times. Here on top we remained with what? 1. Then here we remained with what? P. Then here we remained with what? P. Then here, sorry, we remained with Q. Yeah. So now this P can cancel with what? This P. So therefore our final answer is 4Q. So this is how you can simplify in paper 2. Simple as that. So remember, when you have a division sign, you have to flip the next fraction. So just know that the next fraction after the division sign is the one you flip. If this division sign was here, we could have changed this one. So that's what you need to know on simplification. So next we are going to look at question 2. Yeah. So what is question 2 saying? So question 2 is basically asking us to calculate what? The geometric progression. So how can we calculate the geometric progression? So let me show you how simple the GP is. Yeah. So we have B. So B we have been given 3 numbers. So the question is saying the first 3 terms of a geometric progression are 3, 6, and 12 respectively. Find 1, the what? The nth term. 2, find the geometric mean of 96 and 384. 3, find the sum of the first 8 terms of the progression. So remember, I told you that the formula for finding the sum depends on the what? On the common ratio. Now, what is the common ratio for those of you watching this video for the first time? So, first we are going to write the formula which we use for geometric progression. So the formula for geometric progression is this one. So whenever you hear geometric progression, whatever should come into your mind is this formula. Just remember. Now, what does this formula mean? So, A in the formula means the what? The first term. Then, N means the what? Nth term. So, what do we mean when we say nth term? So, you might say, they might say, or the first term, second term, third term, fourth term, fifth term. So whenever you are hearing those terms, that's the meaning of the nth term. The position at which the number we want is at. So for example, 3 is at what? First position. So meaning our n is 1. 6 is on second position, meaning our n is 2. Just like that. Then our R is our common ratio. Yeah. So now, solving our first question, which is saying we have 3 terms. So what are the 3 terms we have? We have 3, 6, and 12. Yeah. So now you have to understand what exactly geometric progression is. So geometric progression, this is what? A series of numbers which increase by what? By a common ratio. So what do you mean when you say common ratio? Meaning you have to multiply by a certain number so that what? The numbers keep on increasing in a common fashion. So if you think of any number, so which number can we multiply so that we get 6? It's 2. So 3 times 2 we get 6. Again 6 times 2 we get 12. So meaning this series of numbers is increasing by a multiple of 2. So we are multiplying every number by 2. So now which brings us to our first question. How do we find the common ratio? So how can you find the number which you're supposed to multiply? So there is a simple way you can calculate it. The simple way is that you have to take the second term, you divide it by the first term, or the third term, you can divide it also by the second term. So this is the formula which we use when you are calculating the common ratio. So why do I give you two formulas? Because in some case, they can only give you the second and third term. So you may use this formula. But if you have the second and the first term, you can use this formula. So in our case, we have the first and the second term. So we are going to say our common ratio is, what is our second term? 6. Our first term, 3. Therefore, our common ratio is 2. So we have our common ratio. So now we can calculate the what? The nth term. So what is our first term? So our first term is 3. What is our common ratio? Our common ratio we have is 2. What is our nth term? So our nth term is just n minus 1. Yeah. So don't make a mistake of multiplying 3 and 2. Don't make that mistake. So here you can write now 3 multiplied by 2n minus 1. So this is our nth term. So you only multiply 3 with this after you have simplified the what? The power. So this is our first answer. You end there. Why? Because they haven't given us the position for us to calculate. We have just been given n. So there is nothing which we can do about it. So moving on to our second question, which is asking us to calculate what? The geometric mean. So when they tell you to calculate the geometric mean, in simple terms, they are just asking you to do what? To calculate the number in between 96 and 384. So they are saying which number is between 96 and what? 384. So how can you calculate it? So the geometric mean as the formula of b is equals to the square root of a multiplied by c. So now what does this mean? So a is the first term, which is 96 in our case. Then what is c? So c is just the other term which will be given in the question. Because whenever you are calculating the geometric mean, what you need to know is you will only be given two numbers. So a and c. So now you can say b is equals to the square root of a and c. So what is our a? Our a is 96 multiplied by 384. So remember, this is paper 2, which means you are allowed to use your calculator. So you can say 96 multiplied by 384. We are getting 36,864. Now, if we find the square root of 36,364, we are going to see that our answer is 192, which is our geometric mean. And you can prove this by looking at the numbers which have been given, 96 and 384. We say that a geometric mean is a number which is in between two numbers. So if you check 192, of course, it is between what? 96 and 384. So moving on to our final question, which is asking us to calculate the what? The sum of the first 8 terms. So how can we calculate now the sum of the first 8 terms? Okay, so when we're looking at the sum of the geometric progression, it has 2 formulas. So what are those formulas? So those formulas are given to you at the cover page of your paper 2. But in my video, I only cover 1 because we are dealing with the common ratio. So how do you identify which formula to use? So the formulas have symbols which look like this. So we have R. So meaning when R is greater than what? 0. We use what? The first formula, which is S n is equals to A Rn minus 1 divided by divided by R minus 1. So this is the formula which we use whenever the common ratio is greater than 0. But if the common ratio is less than 0, we use this formula. Yeah, so these are the 2 formulas which you come across whenever you are dealing with what? Geometric progression. Yeah. So now moving on to our final question, which is asking us to calculate the sum of the first 8 terms. So how can we calculate the sum of the first 8 terms? So I told you, whenever we have the common ratio which is above 0, we use the first one. So you say sum is equals to A Rn minus 1 divided by what? R minus 1. So what is our first term? Our first term we said is 3. What is our common ratio? So our common ratio we find it to be 2. What is our nth term? So remember I told you, what is the nth term? The position. So in our question we have been given 8 terms. So meaning we have how many terms? 8. So our n will be 8 minus 1. Again, you divide it by the common ratio minus 1. So meaning our final answer is going to be 3 multiplied by, what is 2 to the power 8? So this is paper 2. You can use the calculator. So 2 to the power 8. We have what? 256 minus 1 divided by 1. Then 3 multiplied by 255. What is our answer? So our answer is 765, which is the sum of the first 8 terms. So this is how geometric progression or GP is simple. So now what do you need to know in summary? So you need to know the first formula, which is this. You need to also know how you can calculate the common ratio, which is using these formulas. Then third, you need to know the 2 formulas for the sum, which are given at your cover page. So this is where our question 2 ends. don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out our question 3.